Rain glimmered across the marble steps of the Astoria Crown as flashes exploded from every camera in Manhattan. Reporters shouted one name, their voices colliding with thunder and envy. That's her, Elena Hart, the woman he left pregnant. The cameras caught the tremor in her breath, the sheen of defiance in her eyes. She could have stayed hidden, but tonight she chose the opposite. The limousine door shut behind her like a period on the end of a book she refused to keep reading. The navy silk of her gown clung to her growing belly, a quiet announcement of life that refused to be erased. Inside the ballroom, scent of champagne and betrayal mingled beneath chandeliers that glittered like shards of frozen stars. Because across that room stood the reason she hadn't slept in months, Julian Reese, tech billionaire, her husband, or rather her ex. He was laughing, careless, holding the arm of another woman, Vivian Rose, Elena's best friend, the same Vivian who had been her maid of honor, her midnight confidant, her ride or die. Now she was draped in silver and sin, the jewel of another woman's ruin. Elena's pulse thudded, reporters turned, lenses widening to catch the collision about to happen. Vivian whispered something to Julian, and both glanced her way. Vivian's smirk was a soft dagger. Elena straightened, memorizing the color of it, the kind of smile you can't forgive. A low voice brushed her ear, calm through the chaos. Breathe, Elena. Don't let them see you shake. She turned. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood beside the champagne bar, eyes steady, Rain still clinging to his hair. Adrian Cole, once Julian's chief security officer, now a ghost from the life she'd lost. Adrian, she murmured. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, he said. But since we both are, keep your spine straight. He lifted his glass slightly, subtle salute, then glanced toward the coup, oh that had shattered her life. You're stronger than they remember. Before she could answer, applause cut the air. The master of ceremonies boomed. Please welcome our hosts, Julian Reese and Vivian Rose. The ballroom roared, cameras erupting again. Julian smiled wide for the crowd, but when his eyes found Elena, the grin faltered. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the room. Rain hammered the glass dome above. Adrian whispered, He doesn't know it yet, but tonight he loses everything. Elena didn't yet understand how prophetic those words were, or how this night would be the line between the woman who begged for love and the one who would build an empire of her own. But something inside her shifted. Cold clarity blooming like fire under marble. Betrayal had tried to bury her, yet all it had done was teach her how to rise. And that, dear listener, is just the first spark of a storm that will change everything. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that make you feel, because we're just getting started. The applause still echoed when Elena stepped out onto the terrace, trading perfume and gossip for the sharp bite of winter rain. City lights shimmered below, gold veins threading through the dark. Her hands trembled despite her composure. Behind her, laughter floated through the open doors, the laughter of the two people who had dismantled her heart with surgical precision. She gripped the railing so tightly her knuckles whitened. I won't cry for them. But tears came anyway, hot, angry, unstoppable. A familiar scent of leather and rain drifted close. You said once you liked storms, Adrian's voice murmured at her shoulder. She turned. He stood with an umbrella, shielding her from the downpour, his expression unreadable. I said I liked thunder, she corrected. It's honest. He studied her for a silent moment. Then you should like tonight. She almost laughed at the absurdity, her entire life collapsing in designer shoes while he talked about weather. Why are you here, Adrian? Logan fired you months ago. So I could tell you what he's hiding. That stopped her cold. Hiding? Adrian's jaw clenched. He didn't just leave you for Vivian. He left because the investigation closes in 2 days. Fraud, insider trading. He shifted assets under your name. Her blood went cold. My name? You're the fall girl if it breaks. Your signature is on 3 accounts. He handed her a small flash drive, wrapped in plastic. Proof. Elena stared at it, rain sliding off the edges. Why would you help me? Because I've seen innocent people destroyed for people like him. Someone helped me once. I owe it forward. His calm voice carried weight, something bruised but honorable. She inhaled shakily. If this is true, I could go to prison. Unless we move first, he said. Meet me tomorrow, Pier 39, 5 p.m. Bring nothing traceable. He slipped the drive into her clutch and walked away, before she could reply, leaving the scent of rain and danger behind him. Back inside, Vivian twirled beneath chandeliers, her sequined gown catching every burst of light. Julian pressed a kiss to her temple for the cameras. Elena's stomach turned, not from love lost, but from something worse, a spark of awareness that Adrian might be right. Vivian had always known Julian's passwords. She had always encouraged Elena to trust the system. Maybe she meant, trust us to break you. Elena forced a smile for the press, finishing her glass of champagne in one gulp before exiting the gala entirely. Outside, thunder rolled above the skyscrapers like applause from gods who enjoy irony. By the time she reached her penthouse, the city was drenched. Her reflection in the mirrored elevator doors looked foreign, eyes older, posture sharper. For the first time in months, she wasn't mourning. She was calculating. Betrayal might have taken her husband, her friend, her peace, but it had given her something new. Motive. She stared at her own reflection and said quietly, You built his empire once. You can burn it twice as fast. Morning light spilled through the penthouse windows like uninvited truth. Elena sat cross-legged on the marble floor, her laptop open, Adrian's flash drive glinting beside a forgotten cup of coffee. The city hummed outside, oblivious. She hesitated, then plugged the drive in. Folders bloomed across the screen. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, property titles, all stamped with her forged signature. 3 years' worth of deceit dressed in her name. God, she whispered. Julian hadn't just erased her from his life. He'd weaponized her existence. Her throat tightened until she could barely breathe. She printed one page, just one, and held it under the morning light, watching her signature mock her. A sharp knock snapped her back. She flinched. 2 uniformed men waited on the other side of the glass door. Mrs. Reese, one called. Financial Bureau, we're conducting a standard verification. Panic slashed through her. Already? She forced her voice steady. 1 minute. In that heartbeat, she grabbed the flash drive, shoved it into the kettle's false bottom, a little hiding trick from design school projects, and took a breath. She opened the door with studied calm. One officer smiled professionally. We only need to confirm your authorization on a few accounts. He handed over the file. She skimmed it, identical to the documents on the drive. Of course, she said, voice honey. May I call my lawyer? They exchanged a glance. Certainly. We'll wait. 10 minutes later, they were gone, leaving behind polite suspicion and a card with a badge number that made her skin crawl. Elena sank onto the couch, shaking, her baby kicked, gentle, insistent. I know, she whispered to the life inside her. We have to move faster. She dialed a number she hadn't used since the separation. Mother? Her mother's voice was wary, baking utensils clattering in the background. Elena, are you all right? Not yet. Can I come by today? Of course. Then softer. I knew that man wasn't built for loyalty. Elena's chuckle cracked halfway through. You always did. Hours later, she packed the essentials. Prenatal documents, her sketchbook, one photograph from happier years, Julian kissing her paint-stained forehead after she'd finished designing his first office. She tucked it away, a relic of extinct affection. When she reached the elevator, a man in black stood inside. Adrian. He moved like the city's shadow, precise, alert. You shouldn't have opened it at home, he said quietly. You were followed. Her pulse spiked. Already? Julian's people. They planted trackers in your car. He moved closer, lowering his voice. You need to disappear until I clear your name. She stared at him. Disappear? I'm pregnant, not invisible. His gaze softened briefly. Then we make you harder to find. The elevator hummed down 40 floors, metallic reflections flickering over them like fragments of their former lives. Outside, the rain returned, inevitable, cleansing. Adrian guided her toward a waiting sedan with tinted windows. Where are we going? Elena asked. Somewhere his money can't buy his silence. She exhaled slowly. For the first time, fear and liberation felt identical. The car slid through the drenched streets, a silent bullet of black glass and rainlight. Manhattan blurred by, neon veins pulsing against slate clouds. Adrian drove like someone who memorized every traffic camera. "We've got 20 minutes before his team realizes you're missing," he said. Elena clutched her stomach, the gentle rhythm of her unborn child grounding her more than any seatbelt could. "Where exactly are we going?" "To a safe house in Tribeca. One of my contacts owes me favors. Off-grid, no surveillance, no questions." When they reached the address, a renovated warehouse tucked between art studios, Adrian parked in the shadows. Inside, it smelled of cedar and rain-soaked metal, stripped-down luxury, exposed brick, steel beams, a single leather couch facing the glittering skyline, power and isolation in equal measure. He tossed his coat over a chair and turned back to her. "No one knows this place exists." She scanned the room, half disbelief, half awe. "You live here?" He smirked faintly. "When living feels optional." He moved toward the kitchen, poured water into a kettle, like it wasn't full of ghosts. The ordinary act startled her. "You always make tea when the world's ending?" "Tea steadies your hands," he said, "and you're shaking." She hadn't realized she was. He reached for her wrist, fingertips tracing her pulse, not flirtation, assessment. "You're running on adrenaline. And fear. Good. Fear keeps you alive until courage catches up." Thunder rolled across the river, a long bruise of sound. For a moment the room glowed blue from lightning, then fell back into gold lamp dimness. Elena studied her shadow reflected in the window, her and a man who shouldn't care. But here he was, breaking laws to protect her. "You knew this world before, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "Before Julian?" Adrian hesitated. "Long before. Security for the rich is just leg. All spying. I learned what it means to vanish. Someday I'll tell you why." Outside, sirens wailed faintly from distant avenues. He crossed to a steel cabinet, retrieved a small folder. "Here. Fake ID, prepaid phone, cash. Use nothing with your name." She thumbed through the items, each one stripping away the life she'd known. "And if I run?" "You won't," he said softly. "You've got something to prove." He hesitated, then added, "The flash drive wasn't the only copy I made. There are servers in Zurich ready to expose every transaction, but only if you authorize release." She blinked. "You want me to help you destroy him?" "No," he said. "I want you to free yourself." For a moment neither spoke. The city hummed outside, alive, electric, blind. Elena looked at the fake passport again, new name, new country, and felt the weight of her child kick at the same instant, life demanding forward motion. "All right," she whispered. "Show me how." Lightning flared once more, illuminating the wary determination on both their faces, two strangers bound by betrayal, about to step into a world colder, wider, and far more dangerous. Days blurred into a strange rhythm inside the Tribeca hideout. Silence, coded messages, the hum of generators. The warehouse became both prison and sanctuary. Elena spent mornings sketching blueprints on stray paper, designs for rooms that didn't yet exist but promised a different life someday. Adrian worked quietly at his command center, screens reflecting across his face like shifting constellations. Occasionally they'd share coffee at dawn, two fugitives in the only calm left in Manhattan. But calm never lasted. That week, a news crawl lit across every channel. Julian Reese questions wife's mental health amid insider scandal. Her photo appeared, pregnant, alone, captioned, "Unstable former CEO's spouse." Elena stared at the TV, nausea rising. "He's poisoning the whole story." Adrian muted the sound. "That's his first move. He'll make truth look hysterical until facts arrive. Typical billionaire defense, turn victims into villains." Her voice hardened. "Then we release the Zurich data." "Not yet," he said. "Right now, he expects a strike. The moment you go public, you'll confirm his narrative. We need timing." Elena sat back, pulse hammering. "You talk like a soldier." His eyes flicked to hers, gray steel. "I was. Before security work." A pause. "Afghanistan. Counter-intel." Left after I buried too many good men under bad orders. The admission hung heavy in the warehouse, a shard of honesty glinting between them. She didn't speak right away, only whispered, "That's why you know how to disappear." That night, the city returned to whispering rain. She stood by the window, touching her belly, watching lightning trace the skyline. Adrian joined her, voice softer now. "Julian's money built towers on ghosts. You helped design his first office, didn't you?" "Every inch," she said bitterly. "The glass wall behind his desk, that was my sketch." "Then you'll demolish it," she oaked up at him. "You really think I can?" "I've seen it," he said simply. "You're past breaking. You're rebuilding." Their eyes held a fraction too long. Not romance yet. Recognition. Two souls balancing on the same edge. A sudden buzz split the quiet. Adrian checked his encrypted phone. His expression sharpened. "They found the lawyer who notarized your forged signature. He's dead." Dread jumped through her veins. Julian? Or someone cleaning up for him? He began packing their tech. "We move tonight." Elena froze. "I can't keep running forever." "No," he admitted. "But you can outlast his lies." He handed her a coat. "Next location's older, safer, upstate. You rest. I plan next steps." As they drove north hours later, the city shrank in the mirrors, glitter falling into distance. Adrian's voice rumbled low. "Once we release everything, you'll have to choose. Vanish for good or fight in public." "I'm done hiding," she said quietly. "Let the world see what he really left behind." Lightning stitched the clouds above, mirrored by determination in her eyes. For the first time, Elena didn't feel like prey. She felt like the beginning of reckoning. The cabin near the Hudson River smelled of pine and damp secrecy. Outside, mist coiled along the water's edge. Inside, everything pulsed with silence too measured to be peaceful. Adrian set up equipment on a handmade desk, laptops, signal jammers, burner phones, while Elena stood near the window, tracing the outline of raindrops crawling down the glass. She hadn't spoken since they arrived. When she finally did, her voice was steady, deliberate. "You said timing. So when?" "Soon," he answered. "But first we need to know who else Julian's protecting. There's always someone behind a man like that." At dusk, they combed through data, illuminated only by screen light. Adrian's fingers flew over the keyboard. Folders opened, encrypted chains decrypting one by one. Then a name appeared. Vivian Rose Holdings, LLC. Below it, offshore transfers, Madagascar accounts. Elena blinked. "My best friend runs a shell company?" Adrian frowned. "Not runs, owns. The money trail ends with her, not Julian." For a beat, she couldn't breathe. The betrayal that had already felt complete suddenly deepened into something surgical. Vivian hadn't just taken her husband. She had financed the whole collapse. Across the desk, Adrian's expression turned grim. "She's moving money today. Look!" On the screen, an active login, coordinates pinging the Reese International offices downtown. "She's cleaning the evidence," Elena whispered. "Then we stop her." He looked at her, assessing the resolve tightening every muscle in her face. "You're pregnant, tired, barely safe." "I'm not asking permission." She grabbed her coat, her movements slicing the air. "She took my life. I'm taking it back." Hours later, rain hammered the city again as they parked 2 blocks from the tower that once bore her design. Through the storm, lights burned endlessly on the upper floors, Vivian's ambition glowing like arrogance. Adrian H. handed her an earpiece. "Get to the top floor, storage room A, download whatever's left. I'll cover you from security feed access on level 6. She managed a trembling smile. "You sound like you've done this before." "Once or twice." She stepped into gleaming marble corridors that still bore her fingerprints. Employees hurried past, none recognizing the woman once married to the name engraved on the building. When she reached the storage room, the scent of dust and ozone met her. She found the backup servers, connected the cable Adrian had given her, and hit copy. Then footsteps, high heels, deliberate. The door opened, and there she was, Vivian, perfect hair, perfect smirk. I thought you'd be smarter than this, she purred. Julian said you'd hide. Elena's breath quickened. Is that before or after you drained my accounts? Vivian's laugh was low. You think this is personal? This is survival. She stepped closer, perfume sharp as venom. You were never built for this world, Elle. Some of us had to evolve. Into what? A thief? Into someone who wins. Lightning flashed through the window, thunder shaking the glass like applause. Elena stood her ground as the download bar edged toward completion. Every storm needs a face, she thought, and it was standing right here. The server hummed like a ticking heart. Progress bar, 92% raindrops drumming against the glass, Vivian's heels clicking closer through the static glow. Elena didn't move. Step away from the computer, Vivian ordered, voice sugar-coated poison. You have no idea what you're touching. Oh, I do, Elena said quietly. It's the truth, and it terrifies you. Vivian's expression cracked, the actress finally missing her mark. You think you can win this? Julian built these walls. You built them for him, and I own them both now. Then watch me burn them, Elena whispered. A cold voice behind Vivian. She's not bluffing. Adrian. His weapon glinted silver in the blue lightning. Vivian stiffened, but didn't turn. Still playing bodyguard? How noble and predictable. Move aside, Adrian said. You won't shoot me, she sneered. Men like you never hurt beautiful liars. I don't need to. The system's already downloading your confession. He nodded toward the screen. 100%. Elena yanked the drive free, adrenaline spiking. At that instant, Vivian lunged, clawing for it. They collided, perfume and fury and years of betrayal exploding in one motion. The table cracked beneath the impact. Papers flew like startled birds. Adrian intercepted Vivian's arm, twisting just enough to make her gasp. Enough, he snapped. Vivian froze, eyes glittering with something wilder than fear. You think exposing us changes anything? Julian's on a jet right now, leaving the country. You'll never catch him. Lightning backlit her face as she smiled sharply. You're too late. Elena met her gaze. Then I'll ruin the kingdom he's running from. She tore free, raced to the balcony doors, wind screaming through the seam. Below, sirens wailed, police or press, impossible to tell. Adrian caught up, rain cutting across his face. We have one shot to upload this live. Do it, she said. All of it. He connected. The drive to his transmitter, screens flared across the skyline's digital billboards, data spilling into the public feed, forged signatures, stolen millions, offshore accounts, each line signed Julian Reese, each transaction mirrored under Vivian Rose. In an instant, their empire started collapsing in brilliant, merciless light. Vivian stumbled backward, watching headlines bloom in real time. Pierce Innovations under investigation. Authorities seek founders. You ruined us, she breathed. No, Elena said. You did. Security burst in, radio chatter slicing the tension. Adrian grabbed her hand. We move, now! They sprinted down the corridor, alarms howling like judgment. The elevator was blocked, so he kicked open the stairwell door, guiding her down 20 flights until the emergency exit spat them into the storm. Sirens converged from every direction, reflections flashing red over puddles. When they finally dove into the waiting car, Elena looked back one last time. The tower blazed with electric scars, her creation, her curse, and now her redemption. Adrian's voice was low. You did it. She stared at the skyline collapsing under rain and truth. No, she answered, breath trembling with relief. We did. By dawn, the city felt hollowed out. Helicopters throbbed above the skyline, news banners rolling endless loops of everything Elena had unleashed. Billionaire Julian Reese under federal investigation. Vivian Rose detained for questioning. Words that once would have destroyed her now sounded like quiet freedom. Inside Adrian's apartment across the Hudson, the storm had finally broken. Pale sunlight spilled through the blinds, pale like forgiveness. Elena sat on the couch wrapped in a gray blanket, both hands on her belly, breathing deeper than she had in months. The baby shifted, strong and insistent. You held on, she whispered. Adrian moved carefully, his shoulder bandaged from the chaos at the tower. He set down 2 mugs of tea. Reporters are calling you the whistleblower wife, he said. They want an interview. She gave a faint, worn smile. They got enough headlines from my pain. They don't get my peace. He lowered himself beside her, the springs creaking softly. For a long moment neither spoke, the quiet almost tender. You realize what you did tonight, he said at last. One woman versus an empire. She leaned her head back, exhaustion washing through her. If survival is all that's left, make it spectacular, right? His laughter was quiet, surprised. That's one way to heal. The news anchors' voices drifted faintly from the muted television. Images of Vivian being escorted into federal custody, Julian stepping off a jet surrounded by authorities. The faces that had once owned them now looked small, cornered by truth. Adrian exhaled slowly. You're safe for now. They'll freeze his accounts, seize the assets in your name. The rest, it's yours again. Elena's eyes glistened. Mine, she repeated softly, as if testing the word for the first time. Her fingers traced the teacup rim. I used to think love meant holding on. Maybe it's just knowing when to let jade. Oh, without hating yourself for it. He studied her, admiration edged with fatigue. You sound like someone who finally believes herself. Maybe I do, she said. But what about you? You could have disappeared the moment we escaped. I told you. I owed a debt, he said simply. Now it's paid. Sunlight spilled stronger, melting the last chill from the room. She looked at him then, really looked, the soldier's discipline, the quiet loyalty, the hint of pain beneath calm. I think you just traded one war for another, she said gently. He gave her a small, rueful grin. At least this time, we both lived through it. Outside, traffic began to hum again, the ordinary world waking, unaware of how close it had come to burning. Elena rose, her silhouette framed in gold light. I'm not running anymore, she said quietly. I want to build something new, something ours. Adrian stood too, the corner of his mouth curving. Then we start today. And as sunlight cut through the last strands of storm cloud, Elena realized that justice could feel a lot like dawn, cold, pure, and unbearably beautiful. 3 weeks passed before Manhattan stopped trembling from scandal. Stock tickers recovered, podcasts argued about ethics and greed, and glossy magazines replaced Vivian's famous cheekbones with fresher sins. For Elena Hart, silence became headline enough. She moved into a small apartment facing the river, high enough to watch sunlight crawl across the towers she'd once designed. The baby's room, painted soft sage, smelled of lemon oil and new beginnings. Each morning she walked the boardwalk wrapped in a wool coat, the city wind tugging at her hair. Some passers-by recognized her, most didn't. The few who did just nodded, hesitant, respectful. One woman stopped her near the water, phone clutched to her chest. You don't know me, she said, but thank you. My husband took everything too. Watching you survive showed me I could. Elena smiled through the lump in her throat. We're all stronger than we think. Adrian came by often, never announcing himself, always bringing something absurdly ordinary. Groceries, baby monitors, coffee beans. The soldier-lawyer ghost settling slowly into something almost domestic. They talked less about the past and more about furniture, prenatal vitamins, and which lullabies didn't sound like heartbreak. Sometimes, in the pause between sentences, she'd catch him watching her with that quiet awe of someone witnessing a miracle they don't quite believe. On the night of the first snowfall, they stood on the balcony. The city glowed gold and white, flakes swirling like forgiveness. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The chaos? The adrenaline? Every day, he admitted. Then, after a pause, but I miss peace more. I used to think peace meant nothing happening, she said. Now I know it's the sound of something finally healing. He looked at her, snow gathering on his lashes. You realize people will write about you for years. She laughed, softly. Let them. Just spell the baby's name right. Inside, the crib waited, a tiny universe ready to expand. She traced her fingers over the carved edge and whispered to the child she hadn't yet held. You were born from fire, but you'll grow in light. The kettle whistled. Adrian poured tea while the storm whispered against the windows. You could practically trademark resilience, he teased. She smiled. No one owns strength. We just learn it, bleed it, pass it on. They sat at the table as the city dimmed into quiet, and, for the first time since the betrayal, Elena didn't feel hunted or hollow. She felt present, awake. The world hadn't given her gentleness, but somehow she'd grown her own. Outside, a halo of light crowned the river. The glass towers across the water mirrored their reflection, two survivors rewriting the meaning of victory in the simplest possible way. By still being here, the day her son was born, rain and sunlight traded places above the Hudson, silver against gold, as if the sky itself couldn't decide whether to cry or bless. Nurses hurried, monitors whispered, and then came a single, clear cry, strong, impatient, alive. Elena held him against her chest, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat, and for one trembling breath she felt everything she had lost and everything she had gained converge into this single, perfect weight. Adrian stood at the foot of the bed, still in his wind-worn jacket, eyes glassy in a way he'd never admit. The baby's fist opened and closed around air like testing freedom. "Have you thought of a name?" he asked quietly. "Noah," she whispered. "It means rest after the storm." He smiled, small but real. Fitting. Later that afternoon, the hospital television hummed with breaking news. Julian Reese indicted on 11 counts of fraud and conspiracy. Vivian Rose offered testimony in exchange for leniency. Cameras showed them no longer gilded, just human, ordinary, defeated. Elena turned the sound down. The nurse peeked in, said gently, "You look peaceful, Mrs. Hart." She looked at her son. "For the first time, I am." When she finally took him home, a modest house perched on a green bluff by the sea, the world seemed louder and kinder all at once. Waves folded over each other in endless forgiveness. Gulls cried above like laughter reborn. Adrian carried the diaper bag with his injured shoulder still healing, pretending the weight was nothing. Inside, the room smelled of new paint and eucalyptus. The nursery walls were traced with penciled sketches, little doodles of stars, seedlings, and a window embossed with the words, "Begin again." That evening they sat by the fire, wind pressing softly against the door. Adrian broke the silence first. "Do you ever think about what you'd say if he called? If Julian apologized?" She thought for a long moment, then said, "I wouldn't answer. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide to take." He nodded. "Then you already won." She turned toward the window, watching her reflection in the glass, the same motif that had followed her since the first betrayal. Once mirrors had shown her brokenness. Now they showed her becoming whole. "Maybe the truth ruins what's false," she murmured. "But sometimes it rebuilds what's real." Adrian raised his tea like a toast. "To truth, then." "To truth," she echoed, smiling. Outside, the rain began again, soft-footed and alive. Noah stirred in his cradle, a small sound, somewhere between sigh and promise. Elena looked down at him and whispered the final lesson every listener would remember. "The storm didn't end me. It taught me how to dance in the thunder." Because in the end, shattered glass becomes sea glass, and that's what she had become, refined by tide, not destroyed by it. Thank you for listening to this story. Please like, subscribe, and share. For more love stories that you have never heard before,